This is the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Here for episode number 128, I'm Jackson Neill. Today, the guest is Jordan Mackampa, talking with him about some of his latest music when he came through Philadelphia on his latest tour. But before we jump into that conversation, I want to remind everyone that this podcast is available on all of your favorite platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and make sure to rate and subscribe on those platforms to get the new episodes every single Tuesday and Thursday. So far this year, Jordan has released a couple singles. These include What Am I and Parachutes, really good tracks. And it's all building up to his release of his debut album, Foreigner, which he has announced will come out next March, so March 2020. So, on his latest tour, I stopped and talked with him. I talked with him about these latest singles and just what inspired them, as well as this upcoming debut album and why call it Foreigner, and just what was going through his mind when creating his first ever full-length project. So, with all that said, let's jump right into this conversation. How's this tour been going?
Really well. It's just been one of those tours where each show has just been another level up from the next. Like, we were in Washington, DC last night at a venue called the Black Cat, and for me that was a really good show. But I'm still kind of reeling from the show in Atlanta that we did on Tuesday, which has definitely been one of my favorites for sure.
Well, you said you had never been like on a as big of tour as this one is.
Yeah, never. I've been dreaming of playing some American shows for like a very, very long time, and to like get the opportunity to play some shows now with a band that I've loved for years is really a blessing for sure.
What was it like when you got that call to join this tour?
I was ecstatic. I was over the moon, actually. Not even the fact that I was like a fan of these guys, it was just the fact that I've been placing seeds in the soil for something like this to happen for so long, and people have been asking me for years, saying, "Oh, when you come into America, when you come into Canada, when you play in shows here, and here," and now I can be like, "I'm here now, so thank you for waiting. Please buy tickets, even though I'm playing for like half an hour a night. Please still come."
Exactly.
Because I've like waited a very long time to like play some shows, and it'll be awesome if you can like get down and support.
And this is and you said you've been to a couple U.S. states before.
Yeah,
nothing that big.
Been to New York, New Jersey, Illinois, in Chicago, and as of recently LA. But like I've never explored America to this kind of grand scale. It's very big.
It's a big country.
Yeah, big time.
You figure that out soon.
Yeah.
When people say things are close, like, oh, Philly's close to New York City, it's still a couple hour drive.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not even that close.
Yeah, it's a big old place.
Exactly. So I want to talk about some of your recent tracks. One of them, is titled "What Am I?" Can you just tell me a little bit about that track and how that came to be?
That track was just when I was on my way to a session, and I like decided to watch the news in the morning, which was probably my first mistake, because all the news stories I was seeing were just making me either really upset or like really angry, and there was kind of no in between. And I went to the session, and the guy I was having a session with, called Jonathan Cornby, he just kind of noticed I was like a bit down, and he was like, "Oh, what's troubling you?" And I just kind of poured my soul out to him for like 2 hours and just said how I felt about everything. And this is around the time when everyone was changing their display pictures to blue on Facebook in support for Sudan.
Oh yeah.
And I felt as though, like, as great as the sentiment as that was, I felt as though we could have been doing more. And I don't know, it just kind of struck me with the fact that I have a like position of privilege and a position of power to actually do something and hopefully affect someone enough to make a change, or at least start some kind of conversation somewhere. So I guess that's where it kind of stemmed from, just the idea of what am I supposed to do. I see all like this news about war and terrorism and, you know, xenophobia, homophobia, and just so many things that I feel as though aren't being spread in terms of news enough. And I was just like, something's got to be done. So I kind of wrote that song, And yeah, it's had a positive impact for sure. People seem to have really connected with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a difficult thing of it. You'll watch the news, you'll see all those things, and you're like,
Yeah.
like you want to like make an impact, but you're almost like how do I do that? Where do I even start? And
Yeah.
all those different things that are kind of like you're thinking of.
For sure.
So another one of your tracks, just saw got released today.
Yes.
Parachutes.
Parachutes.
That's probably my personal favorite.
Oh really?
Listen to
Oh,
a
thank
lot.
you very
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
man. I appreciate that.
So just can you tell me what inspired that track, or a little bit behind that?
Oh man, I guess it was just it was a little bit personal for me, but also like for some people that I know who had just been stuck in either like romantic or platonic situations where the person that they know isn't the person that everyone else sees. They see a kind of different person when they're around them, and it was just kind of, the way I describe it is, if you were stuck on an airplane about 40,000 feet up in the air with this person that was kind of like not sitting right with you, and they had a parachute and you didn't, because of how much the way they hurt you is affecting you would jump anyways without a parachute, because any pain that you'd experience without the parachute wouldn't be as painful as the pain they've already put you through.
Yeah. So this was something that was inspired by maybe other people around you in your life, not something
Yeah,
personal?
in a way, not necessarily for me, but around affecting the other people around me, and I guess I'm a bit of an empath in that way, and I don't know, I just felt inspired to write about it.
That's kind of cool to me though. Is like I look at a single like "What Am I," and you got inspired by seeing the news of people that you don't even know personally, you
Yeah,
know,
of
like
course.
around the world. And then this song is something maybe some people you're close to, but still not yourself.
Yeah.
They're able to find inspiration in others. I think that's kind of an interesting,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
a cool kind of thing. So these tracks are all part of your upcoming debut, Foreigner, which was announced. That
Yes.
it's gonna be released next March.
Yes, yeah.
What's it been like making your debut?
Oh, it's been an experience. We recorded it last year from about mid-July to mid-September, and it was some of like the best experiences I've ever had. I feel more at home in like studio settings or on tour than I do in my actual living room.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but that constant creative energy is just something I thrive on.
Okay.
And just being in that environment for so long, recording music that I've written, to then know that I'm going to put it out as an album was a dream come true, really and truly, and I can't wait for people to hear it. I've been sat on this album for like almost a year and a bit now.
Jeez.
And I've just been buzzing for people to hear it, particularly with all the singles that we've released so far for the album. There's a couple of non-singles on the album which I think are gonna like hit people in a cool way, for sure.
I find that so you're more at home in the studio or on tour than you are in your living room.
Yeah.
Is that necessarily I guess my question would be, does that mean you don't feel at home in your living room, or is that more of I feel so comfortable creating that it's home for me?
That exactly. I feel comfortable in both spaces. Like I'm someone that can kind of strike inspiration from anywhere. But like when I know that I don't have to be doing any kind of music work at home, I just kind of treat that as a kind of space for zen and meditation, which is why I feel comfortable there. But I also get that feeling of zen and meditation when I'm in the middle of like recording a very loud and heavy song in the studio. So
that's kind of interesting. So, so even if it's like you said, a loud and heavy song, it gives you like almost meditation kind of feel.
Yeah, just because of like the metronome of the song, it kind of entrances you in a way, and you just lock in with everyone on like the drums and the bass and the additional guitar and the keys. I really wish I could describe it, but like when you're in that moment and everyone's just like doing what they're supposed to and it sounds great, oh man, it's unreal.
Well, it's maybe what makes it so special is that it's something you can't describe.
Yeah, for sure. It's an unreal feeling. I can't begin to like describe it to someone.
But this album's called Foreigner, so
Yes.
Why that name then?
Foreigner is the name of the track on the album, and it's probably the most important track on the album to me personally, because I feel as though it encapsulates me within like 5 minutes in a way that if someone wanted to know something about me, all they'd have to do is listen to that song and they would understand everything they need to know about me within like the space of 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I wanted to call it I wanted to call the album Foreigner because I feel as though right now, with the state of how the world is, we have this issue with the way that we are treating asylum seekers and refugees and immigrants and aliens, or anyone that isn't from the same place as somebody else is from. Mm-hmm. And I feel as though there's been a lack of compassion with the way that people like me have been treated and are currently being treated, because I am currently a British citizen, but I know people who aren't and have come from one place and tried to start another life in the UK and trying to find a balance between two different cultures, mm-hmm. and like still thinking in 2 or 3 different languages while still trying to find a home in a place that isn't their home originally, but still trying to make a safe enough space for them to live and create and breathe without the pressure of feeling as though there are people in that country who don't want them there.
Gotcha.
And I feel as though it's very prevalent in the United States as well as like the rest of the world, but particularly here with the way that border control mm-hmm. is being handled, particularly with this whole like build a wall thing. I've been following that story like religiously, and it's
wild.
It's insane.
It's just
the most, but it's also the most terrifying thing I've ever happened because it's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard of, because there are people out there who believe in that sentiment of like being separated and being divided rather than two people from different backgrounds coming together as one and learning from one another. Mm-hmm. They'd rather have a wall between 2 different cultures rather than, grow together. And that to me is, I think, one of the reasons why I called the album Foreigner. So it kind of speaks to anyone that's trying to find a little piece of home in a place that isn't their home, but still trying to make it, home and safe.
Okay.
For them.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, that whole, obviously the whole build a wall thing. And, over here in the United States, it's been a huge story. And I've heard that even over there in the UK and Europe, with the whole,
the whole
about like Brexit
UN
and the
Brexit,
whole,
it's
just a storyline going around the entire world. Mm. So, you're from the UK, but is your family from there?
I was originally born in a country called the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Okay.
And then me and my mum, we moved to the UK when I was very, very little. And I've kind of spent maybe 24 years in the UK now. We moved when I was like very, very young to London. I spent like pretty much most of my life in the UK, but I still feel very much as though I'm in between 2 different cultures in a good way.
Yeah.
Like I've managed to keep a strong balance of like my African roots as well as the British culture that I've kind of adapted.
Mm-hmm. And so you kind of view yourself as almost this personal example of like, look, I was able to kind of maybe blend these 2 cultures together.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's that weird feeling. How old were you?
25. How old
were you when you came? Yeah.
I was maybe 1 and a bit, 1 and 3-4 months.
Okay.
So not that old at all. Mm-hmm. So like most of what I remember growing up has been the UK, has been London.
Mm-hmm. You see, I myself and the rest of my siblings were all adopted from Russia, but to parents that are traditional Americans, and it's that weird feeling of like knowing you're from. I was at 8 months old when I was adopted, of knowing I'm from another country, but also I don't remember anything from that. And how do you balance that culture? How do you bring that into your life and maybe have it both in there? And really keeping those roots. So I think that's kind of an interesting concept you have on that. So you released a couple EPs prior to this debut. I guess what was the big difference for you going into recording your debut project rather than these EPs?
Do you know what's funny? I feel as though with the album there was less pressure.
Really?
Because I'd already released 2 EPs and I gained a certain aspect of knowledge and performativity and just experience from those 2 EPs, particularly the first EP, Physics, and the second EP, Tales on the Broken. The sound between the 2 is very different, and I also feel as though the level of maturity that I gained from one EP to the other was miles apart. I feel as though I can hear it in the tone of my voice and the subject matter of the songs, like how much I'd grown, and taking those experiences and those kind of life lessons from those 2 EPs and adapting it to an album just felt like putting icing on a cake. Like it was an absolute breeze for me, to be honest.
Oh, really?
And I know that isn't an easy thing for a lot of artists recording EPs and albums, but I just felt so comfortable in that setting because it's been something that I've wanted for so long that I wasn't going to let any opportunity like pass me by or not have it sound the way that I wanted it to. I wasn't going to risk any of that at all.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I have this quote I saw in an interview. You said that you've been wanting to release an album since you first touched an instrument. I think was
pretty much
was the exact quote. So that whole this is something you've just been thinking about. This debut record is something that's been a goal of yours for a long time.
A very long time, yeah.
And I guess how is that goal? So you've thought about it for that long. How has that goal maybe changed and morphed from something you initially thought of to what it is today?
I guess my view on what I want the album to do has changed, because initially I wanted the album to just like, you know, do well in terms of like success and stuff, and now I just kind of want people to find the album whenever they find the album, listen to it, listen to all the songs, and understand the story that each song tells, rather than like think of what I want people to get from these songs. I want to know what other people get from these songs. Like, what do you hear when you hear songs like Under? How do you feel with songs like What Am I want to know your personal experiences, because I poured my soul and my heart into these songs, but the purpose of that was to help you feel something, and I want to know what you felt from that now. So I guess that's been a big change for me.
So you really want to hear back from people and their experiences with your music.
Yeah, because making music is an incredibly selfish thing. Like, no artist really makes music for like the fans. They make it for themselves in the hopes that people understand them, because every musician just basically wants to be understood, and that's why we create the music that we do, in the hopes that there's somebody out there who feels the same way that we do or we did at the time of writing the song. And that's what I kind of want to get now. I want to know what it is you feel when you listen to all these songs, how it makes you react, and what you're going to do after you've heard these songs, after you've heard the album from like start to finish. What's your next step?
Maybe how this piece of music maybe changed you and impacted you emotionally.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's a really kind of interesting thing. So I guess, so that makes me question then, what is success for this debut album for you then? Because you said, like, obviously, you know, when you're first thinking of being a kid, you're like, oh, I want to record an album, be the biggest star in the world. You know, that's because you're just a kid. But it's like now, as you grow up and you release some music, now what do you judge success for this debut record as?
I guess I would judge success as one of those albums that people look back on and think it was like perfectly imperfect for a debut album. Like, it was one of those albums that you can just listen to again and again and again without ever feeling bored of it. That's what I would define as success. An album you can like listen to like 8 or 9 times through in a row, leave it for like 4 days, come back and listen to it another 13 times. Just that listenability is what I define as success. Not just something people listen to once and then like never listen to again. The feeling that this album is just as much theirs as it is mine is what I define as success for sure.
I think those albums, like, I mean, I'm sure you know this, I mean, everyone has them, where every once in a while an album will hit you and it's like, that becomes like a living, breathing, part of your life. It's like, where you're heading into the car, oh, you put that album on. You're walking on the street, oh, you put that one on.
Yeah, absolutely. Soundtracks to people's daily lives.
Yeah. So I guess now, just kind of wrapping this up, just you announced this record coming out next March. You're in the midst of this tour. Just how are you feeling right now?
Good. I feel as though I'm in a very good place mentally with how my career is going, whereas like a year ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, I was very unsure. I think like a year ago, we just finished recording the album. Like a year and a half ago, I think we'd heard that this was going to be the year, or like speaking of like last year was going to be the year we were going to record it, and I was like, shit, I should probably like put some songs together.
Yeah.
Like, because at that point I had a few songs which I knew I wanted to go on the album, but I just wasn't sure how they were going to be played, who was going to produce it, where it was going to be recorded, who's going to play on it. And like now, looking back on like hindsight is an awful thing.
Oh yeah, it is.
Hindsight is a really awful thing sometimes, but it can also be a blessing. But I guess looking back in hindsight, it's just kind of made me realize to be more thankful for where I am now and appreciate the hardships that I had to go through to get to this point. Like mentally, I'm doing like a lot better. Physically, I'm just trying to avoid like the tour bus flu. But like other than that, I'm doing pretty good.
Well, that sounds awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
Again, a big thank you to Jordan for coming on to the podcast. Go down into the show notes for links to all of his music as well as a link to follow him on Instagram so you can keep up to date on maybe upcoming tour dates he has, any more singles he might drop before his project, and then you're aware as soon as Foreigner comes out at the top of 2020. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on your favorite platforms. The rating does a lot to help grow the show. New episodes every single Tuesday and Thursday. For more episodes of this, as well as my sports and music podcasts, go over to jacksonneillpodcast.com. There, I archive all 3 of my podcasts so you guys can go catch up on back episodes if you missed any. Now, if you're a really big fan of the show, maybe consider becoming a subscriber over on Patreon. Over there, for just a couple dollars a month or even $1 a month, you get access to cool bonus content from all 3 of my podcasts, including bonus questions from interviews here on Anything Goes. I write, record, produce, do everything myself as a full-time college student, so any little bit of support really does go a long way and allows me to spend more time making these episodes. If you want to stay up to date on everything that I'm doing, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JacksonNeill20. Today's music is by Analog by Nature with their song CDK Sunday. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you all next time.